Someone asks why you are still single. You smile, you give the usual answer, too busy, haven't found the right person, just focusing on myself right now. And they nod with that look, the one that says they feel sorry for you even though they're trying not to show it. But here's what nobody at that dinner table understands. For some people, staying single is not a failure. It's not fear, it's not giving up on love. It's the most psychologically honest decision they've ever made. And the science behind it will completely change how you see them. Here's the reframe that changes everything. Society has spent centuries treating singlehood as a waiting room, a temporary state you pass through on the way to a real life. But psychology tells a completely different story. Staying single is not always about what someone is missing. Sometimes it's about what they have figured out that most people never do. Let's start with attachment theory. Psychologists have identified 4 main attachment styles: secure, anxious, avoidant, and disorganized, each shaped by early childhood experiences with caregivers. People with avoidant attachment learned early that closeness comes with a cost, that depending on someone means risking disappointment, that love and loss are packaged together. So they built walls, not because they don't want connection, but because the math of vulnerability never quite added up for them. Staying single feels safer than risking the kind of pain that once felt unsurvivable. But not everyone who stays single is running from something. Research on what psychologists call self-sufficiency shows that some people have a genuinely high capacity for solitude. They don't experience aloneness as loneliness. They experience it as freedom. Studies from the University of Toronto found that people high in self-sufficiency reported equal or greater levels of life satisfaction compared to people in relationships. They weren't lonely, they were complete. The relationship was simply not the missing piece society told them it was. There's also something called hedonic adaptation, the brain's tendency to return to a baseline level of happiness regardless of what happens to you. Research consistently shows that the happiness boost from entering a new relationship fades within 1 to 2 years for most people. The excitement levels out, the novelty disappears, and what remains is just 2 people in a room together. People who stay single often understand this intuitively. They've watched enough relationships plateau to know that a relationship doesn't automatically mean a better life. It means a different one. Here's the nuance that matters, though. There's a significant difference between staying single by choice and staying single by avoidance. One is self-awareness, the other is self-protection dressed up as self-awareness. The person who genuinely thrives alone knows the difference. They're not afraid of intimacy, they simply don't need it to feel whole. But the person staying single because relationships feel too risky, too painful, too exposing, that's not freedom, that's fear with good vocabulary. And then there's the social pressure that nobody talks about honestly. The assumption that wanting to be alone is inherently sad, that independence is a consolation prize for people who couldn't make love work. But research on solitude by psychologist Ester Buchholz found that the capacity to be alone, genuinely, peacefully alone, is one of the most underrated markers of psychological maturity. The people who can sit with themselves without distraction, without noise, without someone else to define them, those are not the people who gave up. Those are the people who did the work. People who stay single are not waiting to be saved. They're not broken. They're not cold or damaged or incapable of love. Most of them love deeply. They just refuse to love desperately. They've learned the difference between wanting someone and needing someone, and they've chosen to want without the need. That's not emptiness, that's clarity. If you're someone who has spent years explaining your singlehood to people who can't understand it, stop explaining. You don't owe anyone a reason for how you choose to live. Some people find themselves in relationships, others find themselves in solitude. Both are valid, both are real, and both can be a life well lived. Subscribe if this felt like something you needed to hear, because the next video goes even deeper into the psychology of people who walk through life differently and why the ones who seem the most alone are often the most at peace.